Wake up, world. We're going somewhere. We're having the didgeridoo today instead of the shofar that's used at this time of year in the Jewish ceremonies to announce that, to call us to attention and announce that this is the day of At One Met, and the gates are open, but not for long. So we're heading somewhere, and I'm glad you're here to celebrate today with us, this time of forgiveness, this time of At One Met, and what it means for your life. So throughout the service, we're going to be enjoying the didgeridoo, and keep in mind that it's our form of the shofar for today, okay? So I welcome Donna Corso to come up now and do our welcome and intros and so forth. Thank you, Donna.
So she's welcoming me to welcome you. I welcome you. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Oh, we can do better. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Are you happy to be here today, Norma Burton?
I like that. She said, yay, Reverend, yay. Let's say a yay for all of you, too. Yay! Yay! Really, yay. For you being here, for you choosing to take time out of your life and come into a spiritual container in which you receive some good teachings and you get inspired by incredible music that takes us there. I'm happy that we get to meet in the Havurah because we're in the midst of the energy of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur today. They've been having their special meetings. That's why we couldn't meet here last week, because they were meeting all through the weekend. So what is Yom Kippur? What is Rosh Hashanah? Yom Kippur is called the Day of Atonement. And it's not so frivolous to play on those words and call it a time of At One Met. Because we're living in this time of the great turning. And we know more than ever that we need to understand At One Met and how is it going to happen on this planet. In this season of changing colors all around us, and in the throes of processing the great climate change upon us, and the suffering of so many on the planet, Yom Kippur comes along as a yearly reminder that the spiritual response is to turn toward that within us which knows the oneness. Now is the time for profound understanding of our common fragility. Every human being on the planet has this in common, that we're vulnerable. Every animal and plant and insect knows this fragility of life. Always has, always will. Any safety that's felt by those in power or with certain ideals or wealth or things or health are all temporary. No one is exempt from this humble vulnerability, and this can bind us in God's great compassion. It's humble to admit that in certain moments we can all be severed from our own goodness, from love, from unity. We are all vulnerable to that too. When we strike out at others in the name of religion, how some Christians have struck out against LGBTQ people through the years, how some Islamics have struck out against people in the United States. It's not Jesus who tells them to hate. It's not Allah who guides terrorists to set bombs. It's not the Christian or Jewish or Muslim religion that leads people to this dualistic mindset. It's the result, though, of us humans being fragile and living in a harsh world and responding in unthinkable ways for a variety of complex reasons to that harsh world, right? This isn't an excuse. It's just true. We must humbly admit that we can all be severed from our own goodness, from our God, from our faith, from our unity, from our sense of interbeingness. Fear and war and poverty and misuse of power and profit not aligned with fairness and humility, all these can shadow over the truth of our human goodness. So in this time of At One Met, in this time of the great turning, in this season of the changing colors, reminding us that we all have to let go, in the throes of processing hard things in this world or in our own personal, intimate lives, of seeing in our national politics the great divides that exist, what do we do? we must turn. Turn toward completion. Turn towards oneness, knowing that now is the time to affirm that we have something deep within us that is constantly calling us toward wholeness and holiness and oneness. That's what we're going to be talking about today with this beautiful song that we love to sing here, created by Ricky Byers Beckwith of the Agape Church, Our Whole Holy Way.
Yeah, it's often sung Holy, Holy Way, but I'd like to try Whole and Holy Way, because that more embodies the meaning of the song. So how do we love and live in a more whole and holy way? Why don't we stand up? Of course, you don't have to, but you might want to kind of move and sing a little bit. Enjoy your physical presence in the space. So it's call and response, and if some of you don't know it yet, when I go like this, that's what you sing with me. Some of it's my part, some of it's your part. Oh, let me love in a holy, holy way. Let me love in a whole and holy way. Oh, let me live in a whole and holy way. Let me live in a whole and holy way. Oh, let me know that love is all around. Let me know that love is all around. Oh, let me know that love can heal us all. Let me know that love can heal us all. Oh, let me love in a holy, holy way. Oh, let me love in a holy, holy way. Oh, let me live in a holy, holy way. Oh, let me live in a holy, holy way. Oh, let me love in a holy, holy way. Let me love. Sing it louder. Oh, let me live in a holy, holy way. Let me know. Oh, let me know that love is all around. Let me know. Oh, let me know that love can heal us all. Let me know. Oh, let me love in a whole and holy way. Oh, let me live in a whole and holy way. Oh, let me from the top, one more time. Oh, let me love in a whole and holy way. Oh, let me live in a whole and holy way. Oh, let me know that love is all around. Let me know it can heal. Oh, let me know that love can heal us all. Let me know. Oh, let me love in a whole and holy way. You know it, sing it louder. Oh, let me live in a whole and holy way. Oh, let me live in a one more time, beginning. Oh, let me love in a whole and holy way. Let me love in a holy, holy.
Oh, great mystery. We know that we aren't whole without you, because we are spiritual beings sent here for a human experience. We come from you, we live through you, and we return to you. And so we call out to you today for a reminder, for a sense of your presence, for an upliftment, for an enfillment, for a sense of your strong presence with us. so that we might live through these times with faith, that we might set aside our fears, that we might turn continuously towards a greater and greater love, a love that ourselves long for, a love that every part of our being needs in order to be whole. So we call out to you today for this fine-tunement, for this deeper listening of our hearts. Tune us up, Spirit. Bring us close. Help us to know our wholeness in a way that's greater than we've yet known, because we need it. We need you so that we can walk on this planet as models of a whole and holy way. Come and be with us now. And if everybody would not mind just raising your hands up and whirling them around together. Just invite Spirit to come here into our presence through the ethers, through your bodies, through your minds, through your voices. We invite you, Spirit, come. Come like a breath, come like a wind, blow through us. Come and be here with us now. Fill us, fill us. And then bring your hands down, all the way down. If you can touch the earth, touch the earth. And we thank you, earth energies, for grounding us. And then rise up and touch your own heart. And then at your heart, put your hands into the form of prayer. And turn toward one another and say, Namaste. I'm so glad. So our groaning world, groaning perhaps in the pains of birth, asks us to humbly see the world as whole. She asks us to have that vision that a mother has of her beautiful child. You've heard that, to see through the eyes of Christ as if everyone is Christ, that's what Mother Teresa says. To see through the eyes of Buddha as if everyone is a beautiful, noble being of noble birth. So the eyes of compassionate wisdom and daring creativity, you have those eyes, the eyes of compassionate wisdom and daring creativity. And you are looking around you and walking on this path that leads beyond any shorter-sighted dualistic solutions. It's not an easy path. You agree with me? It's not an easy path. But it humbly holds itself before us because it knows how beautifully fragile humanity is and how precious and riven with goodness we are. We are truly amazing creations. And we've been called forth to be here right now at this time. It's no mistake. You're here because you're called to do something during this time of the great turning. Something has called us here to live in ever more gentle and kind ways. To have more faith, no matter what we hear, no matter what others say. Don't withdraw for long. You're needed here for healing. You're needed here for acts of justice. Your purpose here is to give birth over and over again. And I'd like to read us a poem from a Polish man. His ancestors went through the Holocaust. And in Poland, they've seen a lot of pogroms and a lot of hard times, you know. And so it's fitting that he would write this poem. Adam Zajajuski, if I'm saying his name right, Adam. He said, please try to praise this damaged, mutilated world, our incomplete world. Can you remember in the midst of the leaves falling, June's long days and wild strawberries and drops of wine and the dew, the nettles that methodically overgrow the abandoned homesteads of our exiles? You must praise the damaged world. You watched the stylish yachts and ships, not knowing where they would go. One of them had a long trip ahead of it, while salty oblivion awaited others. You never know. We've seen the refugees heading nowhere. We've heard the executioners sing joyfully. You should praise the damaged world. Remember the moments when we were together in a white room and the curtain fluttered. Do you remember? Return in thought to the concert where the music touched your soul. You gathered acorns in the park in the autumn, and leaves eddied over the earth's scars. Praise the damaged world and the gray feathers on the ground, a thrush lost, and the gentle light that strays and vanishes and returns. Please remember to praise the wild strawberries, the gray feathers that a thrush lost. Praise the tears in every fragile eye that speaks loss and pain. Praise them. Praise the look of glee on the face of the young one with a scarf dancing to the cello music. Try to praise even our confused, incomplete world and the gentle light that strays and vanishes and returns. And the gentle light that strays and vanishes and returns.
That's beautiful. I got a lot of microphone friends up here today. So you can fix it some way. Thank you. So I'll talk while we do this little shuffle. This song is called In the Sun by Aaron Ray. And it really touched me when I heard it. Especially the refrain that I'd love for you to sing with me. May God's love be with you. Always may God's love be with you. And I kind of rewrote some of the words for my grandmother's memorial, which was a couple weeks ago. And I was thinking, you know how they say a lot of times that memorials and funerals are more for the living than those who have passed. And I think when someone dies, you know, especially a loved one, we think about, wow, did I live my best life? Did I complete all that I needed to complete? Did I do it the way I was supposed to? You know, I think a lot of times with death, we reevaluate things. And so when I heard the topic for today on completeness and whole and what it means to live, what does that mean even? This song asks those questions. And then with the beautiful refrain woven through, no matter what, may God's love be with you. And I'd love for you to sing that with me. And just one of the lines that kind of sums up the song, we've been caught in between all we wish for and all we think we need. Caught in between all we wish for and all we think we need. So like, what is real, you know? What is this for? I hope you enjoy it. Thanks, Richard, for helping me out here. In the sun, without a care for what went wrong. No falling down on your knees, asking for sympathy. No being caught in between all you wished for and all you've seen, while we try to find anything we can feel that we can't be leaving. Here it is. May God's love be with you always. May God's love be with you. I think I would lose my doubt if I could see what it's all about. Like all that I've thought is me is nothing that I really need. I've been caught in between all I wish for and all I think I need. It seems we've been fast asleep. The nightmares come, but we can't keep awake. May God's love be with you always. May God's love be with you always, always. May God's love be with you always. May God's love be with you. If I find my way, how much will I find? If I find my own way, how much will I find? Will I find you? Know anymore what it's for. I'm not even sure if there is anyone who is in the song. Can you help me understand? 'Cause we have been caught in between all we wish for and all we think we need. Maybe we've been fast asleep, oh, the nightmares come, but we can keep awake. May God's love be with you. Let's keep singing that always. May God's love be with you always. May God's love be with you always. May God's love be with you always, always. May God's love be with you always. May God's love be with you always, always. May God's love be with you always. May God's love be with you always. May God's love be with you. Amazing grace, how sweet that sound.
Yeah, I'm talking. So on this day of Yom Kippur, we have 1 minute, in this time of turning, in this time of the changing colors, in this time of processing and metabolizing our grief, and remembering the many challenges of this life, may we, as the song says, listen to God's love in our midst. May we yearn to understand what oneness means in this damaged world. May we be the ones who want to remember with great humility that we can all be severed from our own goodness, from love, from unity, and that we all need forgiveness, that we all need to forgive others. We know that any healing begins with humility. And this time of year, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, they're very humbling holidays because they're really about asking us to look deeply within and examine ourselves, which isn't that easy to do, right? But the Jewish people, Christian people, indigenous people, people in all cultures all over the world have these holidays, have these special ceremonies when it's time to pause and look within and take some serious time out to lead to our own self-improvement. So we've been discussing the Jewish high holy days, and how many of you are Jewish here? Some of you are, so you probably went through some of these things in your childhood, understanding what Rosh Hashanah is, these 10 days of repentance, ending with the Day of Atonement, the most sacred day of the Jewish calendar. The sacred 10 days of Rosh Hashanah are a time of, like I said, introspection, when we have to confront our own mistakes of the past year. It's a time for us to acknowledge the wrongs that we may have done to others, and other ways that we have failed to keep what the Hebrew people call the covenant, the agreement with divine love. And then we commit to rectifying the wrongs that we have committed and to try to do some things, to make amends, like they say in the 12 steps, so that the year ahead can be different. So the high holy days, these 10 days, culminate in the worship service of Yom Kippur, when the Hebrew people receive the blessing that they are forgiven, that the sins are cast aside, and that the energy comes for us to be able to start anew. So the challenge of Yom Kippur requires us not just to think about things, not just to think about our past and what might have happened this year and feel sorry for it, but we've got to take action. We've got to make some efforts to right the wrongs and to really think about what that might be. So an action that upholds the covenant is called a mitzvah. You've heard of that, right? A mitzvah. So this word has become common in English to mean a good deed. For example, if you broke a dish, you may not be able to mend that dish, but you can go out and buy a new one and give it to the person. That would be called a mitzvah. The 10 days of atonement are a time for these actions of repentance and reconciliation. And then teshuvah, have you heard about that? A teshuvah is actually the word that means to make an apology. So it's a wise teaching, this teshuvah. It's a multi-step process, teshuvah. First, we have to admit to ourselves where we could have been at fault, and do that in detail. In other words, not just say, I was greedy, but instead say, I was asked by so-and-so to give such and such to this certain cause, and I didn't because I wanted to go out to dinner and a movie that night and spend my money that way. Or something like that, getting kind of specific. And then, if we harm someone with our misstep, the teshuvah says that it's not enough to just think about that in our mind, but we have to apologize openly and explicitly. We have to repair any damage if possible, and only then do we have the right to ask for forgiveness from them or from God. So that's why the Hebrew sages teach that a person knows that his or her teshuvah is complete only when he or she doesn't commit the same thing again. So the ultimate goal of a teshuvah is not just to obtain forgiveness from someone else or to wipe away your own sense of guilt. The ultimate goal of it is to become a better person, the kind of person who would not do such a thing in the future. So now you know what teshuvah and mitzvah mean, right? And so I'd like you to pause for a moment right now and just think about your life, your own life. Let's each just think about our own lives for a minute and do in this moment, you know, what Hebrew people have been doing over these past 10 days, and just look back over this past year. And consider first if you've done anything to anybody that was hurtful or unfair. And be completely honest with yourself, because at this point, no one needs to know anything about this. It's just between you and God, you and Spirit. Just think about that for a minute. And note your internal resistance. Just realize how difficult and humbling it is to admit to ourselves that maybe we've done something that we overstepped some bounds, or we did a transgression against somebody else's energy. I think I would like to have a little music behind just pausing in this moment, just having some background to let it sink in, just to take some moments to really recollect. Be specific. And then in your mind, be thinking about what you might do to do a teshuvah, to do an apology, to do a mitzvah, to do an action that might be able to make up for it in some way. Thought one all the way through, take on another one. Maybe you did more than one thing wrong in this whole last year. I don't know. Think about one more. Think about that person in detail and feel your resistance. Imagine what you might do to carry out a teshuvah, an apology, and a mitzvah, an action of forgiveness. To do this is to complete something. I wanted to talk to you today about what is completion. It's to finish something. It's to bring it through to some wholeness, to a sense of having accomplished one's goal, even one's destiny path. So we come together in a ritual gathering like this to do a very human thing, to pause and consider our ways. Take it seriously. So in this moment, I don't have a piece of paper to give you or a pen. I'd like you to hold out your hand to yourself and pretend that it's something you can write upon. And write yourself a note on the palm of your hand. Maybe you write the person's name or names that forgive or need to get forgiveness from. Write something to yourself that reminds you of your teshuvah, your mitzvah. Take a moment now to just write on the palm of your hand. And then close your hand like this. Got it right there in your hand. You won't forget it. Bring it to your heart. Embed it in your heart and say to yourself, do this. I'm going to do this act of at-one-ment. Completion is possible. Aho. Aho. Amen. Thank you for doing that. And I'm going to go into now talking about forgiveness, because that's a big topic in the days of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And there's a lot that we understand about forgiveness because we have received it and we've done it, but there's a lot that we might question about forgiveness and don't understand. And so sometimes when you bring up the topic of forgiveness, these questions arise in your own heart about it. So I'd like to answer briefly 8 questions that arise about forgiveness. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, you know who he was, wonderful man in South Africa. And he said, without forgiveness, there is no future. So he was speaking that out to his, racially divided, dualistically torn country, a lot like ours is. And he was saying to them, without forgiveness, there is no future. And so that country took on these courts of reconciliation. Amazing. I don't know if you've ever seen any movies about it or read about it, but I saw one movie about it, showing the people that were in the courts of reconciliation, where the people that had maybe murdered their neighbors' families were in the courts with the family members that were remaining, and those family members were telling them the beautiful things about their mother, or father, or son, or daughter, and the people who did it had to listen to that. And they were all weeping and crying. And then the courts, for their punishment, they didn't send them to prison. They assigned them to the family that they had harmed, to serve them for many years to come, to try to do a mitzvah, a deep, deep apology. And throughout that movie, watching the movie, of seeing the real people, it was a documentary, going through this deep, deep forgiveness of wrongs that we can barely bear to imagine, and cannot bear to think about. How could we forgive that? When they forgave it, the great rivers of tears flowed, and as I watched the movie, tears were streaming down my face. I don't think I've ever cried so hard in a movie. And my shirt was literally, it was wet. I was crying so hard. No Kleenex could really catch it all, because it just touched my heart so deeply that people could forgive to that extent. So Archbishop Desmond Tutu, when he said, without forgiveness there is no future, he was speaking not just of a personal future or of personal pain, but of this larger context of apartheid in South Africa, of the terrible things that do happen in our world. And he said that what is true of individuals is true of families, and what is true of families is true of cities and states, and what is true for states is true for nations, and what is true for the nations of this world is true for planet Earth. Without forgiveness, there is no future. We could add to the statement in several ways without changing his basic meaning. We could say, without forgiveness, there is no freedom. Without forgiveness, there is no recovery. Without forgiveness, there is no healing. Yet in a world with so much pain and so much hatred and so much animosity between races and tribes and clans and nations and types of ethnicities and types of sexual expression, is total forgiveness realistic, or is it just a distant dream, a theory that can never really become reality? What do you think? The question is fair and honest and deserves an answer. We might end up saying something like this: yes, total forgiveness is the best way, but it's so far beyond us that we must settle for something much less. We could say that, and indeed we might even think that, but we would be wrong. Total forgiveness may be beyond us, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. That word sin, it just means falling short of the mark of the high calling of humanity. And humanity, we are on this trek. We are on this road, this path to a really high calling. Our birthright as divine human beings means that we are beings of universal love, and the universe has a goal for us. Do you believe it? When you consider our Judeo-Christian heritage, forgiveness of human wrongdoing is a major underlying belief, right? Forgiveness. We talk about that all the time, both in Hebrew and Christian texts. We have a great deal to read and learn about divine forgiveness for our mistakes, our failures, for our human shortcomings. Like, for example, in Psalm 103 it says, "As far as the east is from the west, so far has the Creator removed our transgressions from us." In Psalm 130 it says, "If you, O Lord, kept a record of our sins, who could stand? But with you there is mighty forgiveness." Isaiah said, "You've put all my sins behind your back, O Lord." Isaiah 43 says that Yahweh says this, I alone am the one who blots out your transgressions for my own sake, and I will never think of them again." Acts 10 says, "Everyone who believes in Christ and the Christed One receives forgiveness through his powerful name." So we humans, we have this hope of bringing things all the way through. You've got it in your own individual life, don't you? We've got to have it for our planet too. Because there is this force at work in the universe called love. And it does work through the vehicle of forgiveness. If the Creator didn't set in motion this power of love and lay before us this path of forgiveness for our shortcomings, we would have to shoulder the pain of our mistakes forever, weighted down under a load of guilt that couldn't be removed. Yet we're taught by wise elders of every tradition that the way of the whole universe is forgiveness. It's not endless retaliation. It's not kill them. It's not get rid of them. It's not an eye for eye. It's not a tooth for a tooth. We have seen great teachers on planet Earth tell us that there is a higher pathway and that we must walk it with a great dedication. The sacred texts tell us that it is ours to carry forth. When we're here on planet Earth, it's ours to do. When you stop to think of it, the universe, the great mystery, really has offered us only one solution to all the problems that we see around us. Isn't that amazing? Really, only one solution to all of the different kinds of corruption, to all the different kinds of evil and harshness that we see around us. There's a master plan, and it has one solution. It is the act of forgiveness. Wow. If we have a root of bitterness springing up within us, we truly can't be healthy. This is the way of the universe. Is it realistic? Universe, are you realistic? Did you set a standard that's too high that we just cannot accomplish on planet Earth? Can anyone really live this pathway of unconditional love and forgiveness in this fallen world? To love our enemies? So let's look at these 8 questions that arise about, is forgiveness realistic? Okay? First question is, we've got to define briefly what is forgiveness. There are a number of different Hebrew, Aramaic, Greek words to convey this concept of forgiveness. One word means to blot out, in the sense of divine love that erases the record of the wrongs that we commit. So to blot out, that's one. Another Hebrew word means to lift and carry away. So that speaks of the complete removal of our heavy load of our errors, our mistakes from us. Like they're lifted off our shoulders. They're carried away. That's nice, huh? That feels good. Another word means to release from debt, indicating that the true debt that we owe has been canceled. One Greek word means to show grace to one who has erred greatly. Speaking of the undeserved nature of forgiveness, it's truly a gift from higher consciousness, from the place that goes beyond the rational mind. To show grace to one who has erred greatly. Could that be me? Could that be you? in their book called Forgive and Love Again, these two guys, Nider and Thompson, point out that the sacred teachings in the Hebrew and Christian texts use at least 75 different words to talk about forgiveness. Isn't that something? Like we talk about the many words for snow for the Alaskan people, where there are over 75 words for forgiveness. And so here's what some of them mean. I won't do all 75, but here's like about 10 of them. To forgive is to turn the key, open the cell door, and let the prisoner walk free. That's one of the words. To forgive is to write in large letters across a debt, nothing owed. To forgive is to pound the gavel in the courtroom and declare not guilty. To forgive is to shoot an arrow so high and so far that it can never be found again. To forgive is to bundle up all the garbage and trash and dispose of it, leaving the house completely clean and fresh. To forgive is to loose the moorings of a ship and release it out into the open sea. To forgive is to grant a full pardon to a condemned criminal. To forgive is to relax a stranglehold on a wrestling opponent. To forgive is to sandblast a wall of graffiti, leaving it looking new. Okay, well, the Hebrew didn't exactly say that. Sandblast a wall of graffiti, leaving it looking new. To forgive is to smash a clay pot into 1,000 pieces so that it can never be put together again. When we forgive, we are doing something really big. You know, like it says, we're canceling a debt. We are discarding the note. We are pardoning the prisoner. We're releasing the offender. We're setting free, like in Buddhism it says, gate, gate, parasangate, all the way to the other shore. In my heritage, I always think about my grandmother and grandfather forgiving the debt. I know you may have heard this story before, but it's just so powerful to me that they opened a grocery store during the Depression era on the Indian reservation, and so many people didn't have money through all of those years. So for 30 years, they gave out the groceries. I don't know how they made ends meet all the time, but they were constantly, whoever came to the store, they gave them the groceries. Many, many people didn't have money to pay for them. So all through the years, it turned out to be 30 years. And then my grandfather died, and they had the McCroskey, which is the Irish word for the debts, all counted up. It came to over $250,000. And my grandfather, as he was dying, said to my grandfather, erase it all. Erase the debt. Throw it out. Burn it. Get rid of it all. Because that's what I want to do as I'm leaving here. I want to forgive it all. So I stand on that family heritage of releasing the debt. And you know, in many ways, we've all got a long ways to go, but there are big moments like that. There are big Yom Kippur moments when we can do something big in our lives to forgive. And we've got to remind ourselves, too, that forgiveness does not mean these things, okay? Just to say, forgiveness is not denying the evil that was done. Forgiveness is not just excusing hurtful behavior. It's not pretending it never happened. It's not glossing over the pain you've suffered. It's not removing all consequences for wrong behavior. It's not overlooking criminal behavior. It's not approving of evil. It's not condoning abuse. It's not acting as if the sin never happened. It's not letting others continually abuse you. It's not pretending you weren't hurt. Forgiveness is not the same thing as reconciliation and restoration. Let me talk to you a little bit about that. What is forgiveness then? The most important thing I can say is that forgiveness is a choice, not a feeling. So, forgive them if you feel like it is not what the spiritual teachings say. Forgiveness is not about your feelings. If you've been deeply hurt, you will probably never feel that you were not deeply hurt. In fact, people that have experienced rape or huge traumas, they feel it the rest of their lives. We feel things that happen to us, so it's not about a feeling. Forgiveness is a choice, a decision that's made in our higher mind and in our deeper heart. It's a choice to release others from their cruelty against you. Forgiveness means letting go of the desire for revenge. Seen in its true light, forgiveness is an act of mercy towards the offender. Sometimes we hear people say, well, he doesn't deserve to be forgiven. Well, of course he doesn't. No one deserves forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't earned. If a person could earn it, you wouldn't need it in the first place. It's a gift of mercy that you have to give to someone who's hurt you. But note the qualifier. The gift is given to the other person, but it remains between you and your Creator. The other person may never know it. When you forgive, God, Goddess knows, and you know, and that's all that matters. But the end result will be a change in a way that you feel and act toward that other person. A friend of mine once said to me, I'm looking for fairness and I can't seem to find it. Well, you won't find it, because forgiveness isn't about fairness, and the world isn't fair, but forgiveness is about grace. There's that story of a Tibetan monk that I once heard who was tortured for 17 years by the Chinese jailers, and every day, he made the choice to forgive them. He didn't feel like it, but he chose it in his heart and in his mind, and he made an eternal choice that who knows how that affected those jailers. We don't know. But we do know that when he came out of all those 17 years, he was able to proclaim, I don't have any PTSD. Wow. So number 2, how do you know when you have truly forgiven? Here's my simple answer to this question. You know that you've forgiven when these few things, you no longer think about it day and night. You no longer have to talk about it all the time. You no longer feel the need to seek revenge. You no longer live in bitterness and anger. And you can recall those who hurt you and actually wish them well. Is forgiveness a one-time event or a process? The answer is yes and yes. It's both an event in the sense that you have to at some point decide to forgive. And it's a process in that it has to be repeated often and over time. I spoke with a woman once whose husband abandoned her for a younger woman, leaving her with a very young child to raise. And as she told me the story, she said, I guess I've forgiven him 1,000,000 times. I forgive him over and over every day. And I said to her, you'll probably have to forgive him 1,000,000 more times before it's over. That may not seem like a word of hope, but it in fact is. Because remember that forgiveness is not a tool for manipulating people. No one can force another person to do anything or to be reconciled. It's got to come from the heart, prompted by the Holy Spirit. We forgive because it heals and cleanses our own energies. Number 4, does forgiveness always lead to reconciliation? I see you shaking your heads. No, it doesn't. Forgiveness is one thing. Reconciliation is something else. Reconciliation requires forgiveness, but forgiveness does not demand reconciliation. You get it? Forgiveness depends on you. Reconciliation depends on the other person. It implies confession, repentance, restoration of trust, and the passage of time, plus a mutual desire to reconcile. So often it's not possible, and sometimes it's not even wise. Number 5, what does the person who says, I can forgive but I can't forget mean? I can forgive but I can't forget. Well, this is a very common problem and a very common statement, right? Sometimes you might hear someone say, if you haven't forgotten, you haven't forgiven. But that is not necessarily true. Our painful memories do often return to haunt us. In pondering this problem, my mind ran to the scripture in the book of Hebrews, which quotes God as saying, their sins and their lawless acts I will remember no more. So underline that last phrase, I will remember no more. God's forgiveness means she chooses not to remember. Do you hear that? God, if we take the scriptures to see what they're saying to us, that God makes a choice to remember our wrongdoings. So that we see that even on the divine level, forgiveness is a choice that has to be made. It's not a mood or a feeling or a passing notion. It means we choose not to remember. There's a big difference between remembering something and dwelling on it. We can all remember, if we try hard enough, things in our past that hurt us. Forgiveness means, though, that we get to the point where we're really choosing not to dwell on them, choosing not to hold a grudge against someone. I remember the story of Clara Barton, founder of the Red Cross, who was talking with a friend one day, and the name of that person who they both knew came up, and years before that person had done something very mean to Clara. And so the friend asked Clara Barton, "Don't you remember what she did to you?" And Clara said, "No, I distinctly remember forgetting that." Number 6, do you need to tell the person, "I forgive you"? The answer is not necessarily. Obviously, if they ask for forgiveness, and then if you intend to forgive them, then of course you should say, "I forgive you." But I'm thinking about those times when we're hurt by the thoughtless comments of unkind actions of others, and most of the time it isn't helpful to go to them and say, "I forgive you for that mean thing you said to me." Because 90% of the time you're just going to be picking a fight. They're going to say, "I didn't do that," or "I didn't do anything that needs to be forgiven." So just remember, you don't need their permission to forgive them. You don't need their agreement that they were wrong. You don't. Just forgive them. Number 7, how do you forgive if you have the case where the person is not confessing anything? How do you forgive? And this brings us to the heart of the matter. How do you? How do you? How can you forgive those who do not, will not, cannot own up to what they said or did? It's a painful problem, because the world does present us with difficult people. There's even a book written, How to Deal with Difficult People. And these folks out there who will stomp on you and walk away laughing, and then you confront them about it and they do it again. Maybe you work with someone like that. Maybe you were, I would hope to say were, married to someone like that. Or maybe you've had a relative who sexually abused you and has never admitted it. How do you forgive someone if they're already dead? What about people who have moved out of your life and you have no way to confront them? You may not even know where they live or their name anymore. What does it mean to forgive in these kind of situations? Well, over 400 years ago, John Calvin, the great theologian, said there are 2 kinds of forgiveness. The first is the kind where the person who did you wrong admits it and comes to you asking forgiveness, and you grant it, and the relationship is restored. That's the best kind. But unfortunately, we're in a fallen world, and that isn't always possible. So he said there's a second kind of forgiveness. Sometimes people have wronged us and will not admit their guilt no matter what we do. They will cut off relationship rather than face the hard work of reconciliation. And they might keep right on hurting us. How can you forgive in a situation like that? Calvin said, you can forgive even in that situation in the sense that you let go of your anger and bitterness and refuse to let the hurt dominate your life. True, the relationship may remain broken. It may never be healed. And you might have to let go of even that, but you can choose not to remember their sins. You can choose to see their face and to hold them in the light and to wipe clean any thoughts of what they have done. You can choose to have that kind of love. Number 8, and final question. What if you can't, though? What if this anger keeps returning and you can't get over it? How do we deal with these deep feelings of anger that keep coming back and make it feel impossible to forgive someone? Well, in one of her writings, Corrie ten Boom tells of some friends of hers in her own church who wronged her in a public and malicious way. For many days she was bitter and angry until she forgave them. But in the night she would wake up thinking about what they'd done and get angry all over again. And it seemed that the memory would not go away. But finally help came in the form of a pastor from another church who she went to visit and ask for help. And she confessed her frustration that she wasn't able to forgive and that she had a lot of anger in her heart. And so the pastor took her out up to the belfry where the bell was and the rope. And he said, when you pull the rope, the bell peals out a ding, dong, ding, dong. But what if you don't pull the rope again? Slowly, the sound fades away. You said forgiveness is like that. When we forgive someone, we take our hand off the rope. And it might take time, but when we're not pulling on that rope anymore, the ding-dongs of the old bell will slow down and fade away.
It's not true.
I know, because I'm going to say one more thing about it. I'm so glad you said that. So that was great for Corrie ten Boom, and I'm glad that worked for her. But I work with people all the time who that doesn't happen that easily for. I had one woman who was a young surgeon, and every time she was in surgery, doing brain surgery, the thought of her sexual abuser would come before her mind, and she would get all foggy and confused and shaky, and she could not keep going. So there comes a time, sometimes in life, when the anger is too big, the hurt is too big, the trauma is too much, that we've got to take a time out. And so she did. She took a time out. She took a month off from her practice and came into a secluded place, a hermitage, where I was her counselor. And we did the deep trauma healing work, because that's what's needed sometimes. You know, you've got to go deeper sometimes. And Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah give people 10 days, but even that might not be long enough. You know, so you just have to be with it in your life. And when you feel that you're getting triggered over and over again by the same kind of person, or the same kind of pattern keeps coming up, you might need to go on a deeper journey, right? So that's why I teach the Journey to Completion classes, which take place over a 3-month period, where we take 3 months. Even that is not long enough. People do the class over and over and over again. But in those 3 months, in that bit of a longer time period of looking at what's really hurt us, we can take one thread of our pain, of our trauma, and bring it all the way through, and tie a knot on the end, and bring that one to completion. So I can testify to you that that is possible. That I have gotten to watch hundreds, if not at this point over 1,000 people who have brought these threads of unforgiveness, these threads of pain and trauma in their life, all the way through to, that one's done. Let me take on the next one. Work on that, bring that one to, that one's done. So when I studied with the Huichol, they told me this is called the path of completion, or the journey to completion, and they gave me permission to teach it and to tell people it's possible to come to completion. But you have to do the hard work of it. And it might take pausing and taking time out and really dedicating yourself to it, but it can be done. And so at the end of your life, the Huichol say, if you've done this work of forgiveness, you have a rug that you've woven that is your magical carpet, and you do sail off into the next dimension with your incarnational destiny complete. You have completed the work that you came here to do. So is completion possible? Is forgiveness possible? What do you think my answer is? With a lot of hard work.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Do you think that somebody who is living in a household with someone who is abusive should just forgive them every day? Not allowing the person to be abusive.
Thank you so much for asking that
And
question.
I'm not saying to fight back or to be abusive also. But a lot of people are in situations where they cannot move away.
Well, my background, I don't know if you do or not, but I was director of battered women's shelters for over a long time, a lot of years. And first thing we'd always say to people is get to safety. It is not okay to stay in an abusive situation, especially physically abusive. A lot of situations are verbally abusive too, and they're not comfortable and not good to stay in. They beat down your self-esteem. But especially when it crosses over that line and gets to physical abuse, may there be a place that you can go, that person can go, that we can guide people to, that they can be safe from that harm. So that's the bottom line, right? Got to get to safety. And then, these situations require years of healing work, and that's what I'm saying. Like we have to work a long time to heal our trauma wounds.
Oh, I can heal. I was part of the Forgiveness Day with Bob Platt.
Do you like what I'm saying about this with a person in an abusive situation, though?
Well, the message I was getting was you're just supposed to forgive an abuser, and some people can't get away from their abusers.
No, that's why I wanted to take that time to give that long list of things that are not, what do they say, not, forgiveness is not about this, not about that, not about this. It's not about ignoring. It's tricky when we talk about forgiveness, isn't it? Because It's really tricky. I mean, we've been going through, amongst us, some questions about this, like what is forgiveness? Because it's a hard question.
Well, in its choice, like you said, it
Yeah.
doesn't take away action, what you need to do.
Right.
And the choice you make and the actions you make. And the forgiveness part, when you take time, years.
Yeah, but you have to have safety from being pummeled, from being attacked, from being abused. We totally agree with that, and we want to be those who provide safety. We want this to be a safe container here, and I've in my Journey to Completion classes provide a safe container. Up at the Circle of Trust, try to provide a safe container for people to be safe enough. I say we're always looking for a safe enough container. Anne Marie, did you want to say something?
Yes, something very important. There's a very fast way to move through to forgiveness, and I discovered it in the last year. I'm going to stand up. What I do with my clients and people who come to me is I put them in a meditative state. We call forward the soul of the person that whatever they did to you, the abuser or whoever it is. And you have the conversation. I choose not to play this game of victim-victimizer anymore. When you did this and this and this and I felt like this and this and this and this. Answer me. And you have a conversation with the soul. And when you find out why that person did those things to you, it's easy. It's easy. And then
Well, I think, Anne Marie, that's a good point. Thank you. And that there's a way of compassion that you're talking about. It's like getting to the point where you can have deep compassion. But I myself know that I was much too quick sometimes to jump to compassion. So that can be an error that we make in that direction too, because sometimes we might be the kind of person who goes too quickly to compassion. Other times we might be the kind who goes too quickly to revenge and hatred, But if we go too quickly to compassion, we have to work on having compassion for ourselves, right? Which I know that process probably leads to too, but we've got to have self-compassion, like they say in nonviolent communication, and give ourselves a lot of empathy. And then, sometimes move towards compassion for the other. Now, you're going to say one more thing?
Yes, forgiveness is easier accomplished when you are out of a situation in which you aren't being tortured or abused.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing, I know it's a very complex subject, but I don't want the message to be that it's a spiritual flaw if you cannot forgive. If you were a prisoner in Guantanamo Bay, and you've been tortured for years without due process of law, not that that justifies torture. To hold up an example of an extraordinary saint that we heard that we hear was forgiven. I guess my point is, it's hard to forgive when someone's standing on your foot and running their heels into your tarsals. But my point is, it shouldn't be considered a spiritual flaw just because somebody is unable to forgive when they're in an abusive situation.
That's why I started out this whole talk about our great fragility. Our great fragility and vulnerability, because who knows when that could be us in a very difficult situation where we lose our faith, where we lose our ability to forgive. And we need to hold one another in that tenderness, realizing that it can happen. Even to a person with great faith in one moment, they can go through really hard things and perhaps lose their sense of connection. So we need to hold all of us, with that sense of great compassion and understand the fragility of our human nature. Patty, and then back to you.
Through my experience, I have found that I can't reach the point of forgiveness until I have gone through the atonement, which is to actually embrace myself in what is being triggered or which is speaking so loudly to me. And then something happens, and forgiveness is not, the choice for me comes not through saying, do I forgive or don't forgive? It's actually being able to embrace and experience the pain that I feel when I don't forgive. I don't know if that makes any sense, but the choice comes, do I want to continue to abuse myself like that, and being able to look at how I hold myself in a situation being abused. And I hear what you're saying, because I think forgiveness is like a Band-Aid that has been applied so casually in our culture that it really has no meaning. And what if forgiveness, atonement and forgiveness, is actually the technology of the sacred in bringing us into awakening? It is a deep, laborious process in which we actually get to know ourselves and have self-compassion. And through that, our hearts are broken open in some way that we can make a clear choice. It comes to us. It's wisdom that comes through us, through this experience of knowing ourselves.
Great points, Patty. And at other times I've talked about forgiveness as an alchemical process, right? It is a very big work. The alchemists called it the great work. So it's not easy. It's not a spiritual bypass. It is a great work that I think Yom Kippur and days like this challenge us to undertake.
Well, you can't have compassion and forgiveness without holy understanding.
Without what?
Holy understanding.
Yes.
And if you've read the Course in Miracles, which I'm sure that most of you have, that's the big lesson there. Once you achieve holy understanding, there's nothing to forgive.
Yes.
However, my point is, and St. John of the Cross would pick you up on this, when you are being tortured or abused, well, he wrote Dark Night of the Soul, and he was tortured mercilessly. And most people in this culture don't know what torture is. But there have been human beings who have been tortured throughout history and still are during our times.
I think there are a lot of people in our homes in America who know what torture is, unfortunately.
And it's not a spiritual flaw if you can't forgive your abuser while you're being abused. It's not a matter of what, you can't achieve atonement. It is a matter of you are being tortured out of your normal capacity to endure and tolerate.
So we're blessed because, just in conclusion now, we live in this unity community in a place where we grapple with these things in a really deep way. I don't know if all unity communities do, I don't know, or what other churches do, but we grapple with the difficult things of life, the shadows, the difficulties, and we bring them all the way through. So that's why I like it that I do the journey to completion, and we are on this path to completion. And we can talk more afterwards if you want to. We got to bring it through now to our ending.
If you were in a concentration camp,
Excuse me,
if you were
ma'am.
in a
Ma'am,
concentration camp, people were being gassed and murdered.
ma'am,
I know, but we-
can you please honor the fact that she was just asking us to come to completion and honor, I'm not asking you to leave.
We
and
can
I'd love
talk
you to
more
stay,
afterwards, because it's
Yeah.
a great topic, and I thank you, sweetie. I do appreciate everybody engaging like this. Lots of times we don't do this. It's great. I appreciate the conversation. And now we're going to bring it through so that those that have to leave can leave, and those that stay can stay and talk and be together in our afterwards times. But we have a couple great things for you still, that we might not have time for all of them, but we have this wonderful meditation song. So with all of the energy that's been raised here, we'll make it shorter, but we'll take time to let things settle inside of you right now. And Heather has a beautiful chant from David Premal. And we're lucky to have Scott here with us with some incredible stuff. So anyway, we've gone a little bit longer, but please just let this settle with this wonderful meditative music. Everything that we've talked about today, and remembering your own mikvahs and your own teshuvahs that you want to do this week, hopefully. And let's, just go into a calm space where we know that Spirit is all around us to help us live in this more whole and holy way.
Yeah, and may it